Today on Aristeia 99, we're going to be talking about Bonsai Zap's favorite, hEXxer. So we're going to start off with the stats. As always, hEXxer has initiative of 5, which is average, a movement of 4, normal, energy of 5, just what you expect from a starting core box character. She does have a health of 3. I'm afraid she is a little squishy. When we get into her defensiveness, her defensive stat, well, I'm afraid that trend continues. She has a blue and a yellow for defense. So she's not necessarily going to be able to deflect a lot of damage. Now the primary purpose of this is arguably, however, displacing herself, which is her character switch. Go to her brawl, again you got a blue and a yellow. She's not very likely to stop anyone, but she could displace herself. And again, we've got her actual disengage roll. 2 yellows, not a great chance of disengaging. Not a bad, but not a great chance of displacing herself, which is honestly about as good. So, and we've been talking about displace. By the way, this is what she does. If you look at her character switch of a shield and a bang, displace yourself. Now this is a big thing for her because every time she displaces herself, she does not have to make a disengage roll. This is going to be very important for keeping her alive. Let's be perfectly honest here. Whether it's a matter of you're trying to get away from a melee character, or if, say, a ranged character takes a shot at her, can you hide behind someone else? Or can you hide behind some cover? You do need to protect hEXxer. First off, all the characters we've mentioned so far, she is the only one that has no innate attack other than Contender. Contender being the range 1/8, 3 energy, and just an orange die attack. If you're using hEXxer and you're using Contender, something's probably gone wrong somewhere. Or you've got a heck of an opportunity, and I hope you've got the cards to buff her up. So her first ability is Gotcha. 2 yellows, range 1 to 3. This is a really important thing to note. This puts her pretty much in range of every melee character. They should be able to get to her fairly quickly. This is why the displacement is going to be important. But also Gotcha's effect is impose the immobilized state to the target. This is the reward for the risk you take. You get to stop them in their tracks. Now this doesn't help with a character necessarily like Maximus as it would with other characters. Actually Maximus, Musashi, I believe in 8-Ball's got a displacement switch. So you do need to be careful with that. Her switch for Gotcha is a shield and an exclamation point, which I should also mention is her character switch, so you might have to choose in some situations, and it's really not a great combination. Impose the -2 movement states to the target. Which one is better is actually a really tough question you need to consider, and you need to consider the target. A character such as Musashi can displace himself based on the damage he inflicts. So, you know, if you immobilize him, that's good, unless he's got someone he can damage. However, if you hit him with the -2 movement, that limits his options later on. It's possible to get both of these. If I was personally just adding something as simple as a blue or technically even an orange would help not only the chances of Gotcha working, but improve the chances of you getting the switch. The yellows, again, they're primarily there for getting the bangs, the switch, your exclamation points. So the fact that Gotcha only has 2 yellows, she could be in trouble if it doesn't go off. Likewise, if she is stunned, which cancels out one success, well, yeah, she's going to have a really hard time hitting it. She's one of the characters that stun can really hurt in terms of her effectiveness. Next up, we've got Vade Retro, which is probably the safer ability to use. 3 yellow dice, range 1 to 4, and you displace the target. Now, this is what's worth mentioning here. It says target, doesn't say enemy, doesn't say ally. So you can take Maximus, the slowpoke that he is, and push him along and move him to where you want him to be to better set him up, for instance. If you have, say, if you're playing against Gata, you can push her next to a powerhouse like Maximus, who's got a very good chance of intercepting her. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can push someone just a little bit out of range, bring them in range of someone else. You can push them out of the scoring zone. This is great for King of the Hill, I might add, and just really anything with scoring zones. She is manipulating the battlefield. In fact, the obstacles that you'll place onto the map are valid targets for this. Because you're not inflicting estates, they cannot have states, but you can move them, you can displace them. This is situational. There are other ways to do that. Final Boss has got a method, for instance. But the ability to do that's, I think it's really probably one of the most powerful abilities in the game. Costs you 1 energy. Especially fun is if you are working with or against Fiddler and Gaia, who both put minions out on the board. And do you want to make a charge lane? Do you want to close a charge lane? You really get a lot of options with this, and I think they would work well together. So let's get into her tactics cards. First off, we're going to look at Access Denied. At the beginning of hEXxr's activation is the timing. This is not a team card. Impose the -2 movement states to all enemies within range 1 to 3. This is a red 1 to 3. She does not require line of sight. That is invaluable. Particularly if she gets dazzled, which would normally kind of throw a wrench into everything else she wants to do. Gotcha and Vade Retro are both black ranges. They need to have line of sight. Access Denied, not so much. If you're doing anything with chasing objectives down, this is going to be important. A very good ability. Next up will be Ragdoll. Again, at the beginning of hEXxr's activation. Until the end of the round, Vade Retro targets are dazzled in addition to being displaced. So this takes really one of the most useful things in the game and makes it just a little bit better. Dazzled, reducing the range of abilities from 0 to 1, is invaluable for dealing with ranged characters and ranged abilities. So, for instance, if you wanted to if you saw Hannibal, who his abilities are based off of line of sight, you can cut off him from having assisting characters with line of sight, and he cannot provide by taking out their line of sight. So, if he's surrounded, your friend's dazzled, you don't really get the benefit of them. Conversely, if you dazzle Hannibal, he can't offer the point man bonus to anyone else. And I think that's a really important thing to note. If you're dealing with a Wild Bill or a Major Luna, you push them wherever you want them. Then with them being dazzled, they don't have very many good options for dealing with whatever situation you put them into. Next up is Unlimited Power during hEXxr's activation. You're seeing again, her tactics are not very they're team focused, but they're not team usable. And that's really important to consider when you pick her. Impose the -2 energy state on yourself. You may displace all enemies. This can be fantastic, particularly towards the scoring of a round. Now, first off, you're imposing the -2 state on yourself. So what happens is at the end of her turn, you go through the states phase. It'll flip over, go to the -1. So when she starts her next turn, she'll have a -1 energy on herself. She doesn't get hit by it, as you would think it does. Likewise, this is a state, but you've already been granted your energy for the round. So it does not say, oh, you use that card, so you got to take 2 energy off. You went from 5 down to 3 this round. That's not how it works. Don't believe me? You can go to the Corvus Belli website, aristeiathegame.com, and they do have that in the wiki. This could change later on. Double check, but that is at this time the understanding of that ability. Now, there's a weakness with that, but it doesn't really come into play with the core set. It comes into play when you start getting the expansions. If you're dealing with, say, Eclipse, who can flip that back over, then all of a sudden you do have a -2 energy. That's not terribly good. If there is a Bachman, he can steal that, then give it back to you, or put it on someone that you consider important at the time. As the game developed, this becomes a little more of a potential hindrance. Conversely, if you have a Bachman on your team, he can just take that off of you and give it to an enemy. That's great. Finally, Untouchable. The timing on this, again, this is a hEXxer only ability. When an enemy declares an attack on hEXxer, until the end of the round, hEXxer's defense is a green, good, a blue, a yellow, and an automatic success. So basically she goes from having a very relatively poor defense to having a very, I would say, a pretty good one. So not only does she gain the green and the possibility of a critical success on the block, removing a whole die from play, she gets a blue die, which is an excellent defensive die. She gets the automatic success. She gets a yellow, and all these have exclamation points. So she has the chance of getting out of harm's way as well. So while hEXxer is one of the starter core game characters, I wouldn't necessarily say she's one of the easy characters. She's a character that requires a fair bit of thought. You need to have an idea of what you want to do, and you need to know how you want to use her and how she can help the rest of your team. And I think this is actually a good thing. The reason being is when the game starts you off with a little practice game, demo game, and they have a green team, they have an orange team, and she's on one of the teams, obviously. But it makes you think. And she's the first character that we've covered that you have to think about how synergies work and how you can get the most out of her and how you can use her to the detriment of the other team, even though she has no attacks. So when you start playing Aristeia, of all the starter characters, she's probably one you need to spend a little more time on and consider. She might be the first character you use of that type, but she won't be the last. And in addition to that, you need to consider, how will she be used against me? What can I do to defend against that? So for instance, we mentioned again Dazzle. Well, pretty much all of her normal abilities can be dazzled, and that can shut her down. If you're using a character against her such as Oberon, you can silence her. Always a good thing. She doesn't really have an orange ability, a passive, which is a little unique and not in a way that would thrill you, to be honest. So she is a very intentional character. You do not necessarily want to react with her so much as you want to be being the puppet master, as it were, You want to be the one using her to help you call the shots to set up for your next round. If she is the last character in your order, then she should be setting up for your next round, whether it's disrupting something your opponent has set up, putting you in better positioning, moving something, an obstacle, where it's going to be in the way, either defensively or offensively. You have to think about what you want to do. And really, I think that's why a starting player probably really should make themselves play more than a few games with her, because it helps you develop a feeling for the control game in Aristeia. So, just the fact that you can force disengage rolls on a character like Maximus or Musashi by putting them next to each other is really a big thing. If you can put someone right next to someone they're going to be weak against, Wild Bill, Major Luna against any of the melee characters, that's great. If you want to say take an obstacle which Gata can jump over, they are valid targets for free running, then you can help set up Gata to make a winning score for the next round. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and you got to think about it. And hEXxer deserves the time for you to think about it. So if you like this video, like this, press like, subscribe to be notified when new ones come up. Aristeia 99 goes up pretty much every Wednesday at this point. We've got games on Saturdays. We've playing Aristeia and whatever catches our interest at the moment. Bonsai Zap does tilt brushing. He's actually been doing tilt brushing every day for the month of Inktober, but he does those on Sundays. You can also check us out on Twitch, www.twitch.tv/shamelessmayhem. Thank you very much. Talk to you next time.